Hi everyone, it's Lynn Dion here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to be stamping this beautiful floral image from Penny Black, and we're going to be coloring the images using a really simple, easy ink smooshing coloring technique. So let's go ahead and get started. So this is this beautiful rose image that we're going to be using. This is from Penny Black, and this is one of their cling stamps, and it's called the Rose Garden. And they give you also, Penny Black always gives you these beautiful images on the packaging as well, which you can use as a guide. For paper, I'm using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock. I've placed that in my MISTI, and I do want to remove that thick foam pad from the MISTI because, again, these are the cling stamps, so they're actually a really thick rubber stamp. So for ink, I'm going to be using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I'm going to go ahead and ink up that whole image and stamp that. And I'm going to be stamping this 3 times. So I went ahead and did that, and then I'm going to quickly heat set that with my heat tool. For the first image, we're going to be using Ripe Persimmon and Squeeze Lemonade. These are the Distress Oxide inks. I'm going to do some really simple, easy coloring here. So if you don't love to color, you'll love this. I'm just going to pat down those 2 colors on my glass media mat. Then I'm taking a little bit of water from my Distress sprayer, and I'm just going to spritz that on there. And then I'm targeting the flowers here. I just want to get some light and dark areas on these flowers. So I'm just going to kind of pat this around in that ink. You can always spritz it again if it gets a little bit dry. Now, because those colors are blending together, what I'll do is I'll just wipe that clean and we'll start over. So I'm going to heat set this and see what it looks like. And then what we can do is come back in with a bit more color in the areas that we want to target here. So I'm going to target a few of these areas. So I'm placing that ink back down on my glass media mat, spritzing it again with a little bit of water, and I'm just going to start picking up some of those colors. So I'm just flipping it over just to take a look at where I have the colors and where I want to add a little bit more. But again, anything goes here. It's not scientific. It's just they're all going to look different. So if you're doing multiple cards, every card will look completely different. And so that's the fun of it, I think, is just to kind of see what you come up with here. Now I decided to add a little bit more yellow over here on the left-hand side. So I'm just going to pat that on real quickly here. And then I'll heat set this one last time. So that's to color in the flowers, and you can see all the nice variety of color we get there. So we get a nice shadowing and really easily. Now with Mowed Lawn and Twisted Citron, I'm going to do those little leaves there. Again, I'm just patting it down on my glass media mat. And I am going to color the whole panel, but I just want the leaves to be green. So don't worry about if the rest of it gets colored, because we're going to be cutting that out later. So here I'm just again patting up those light and dark colors. And I'm targeting those leaves down at the bottom there. I'm going to go ahead and heat set that a little bit just so I can see what it looks like, and then pat on a little bit more color. So now I'll heat set this panel as well, and you can see that we have some nice shading there. Now for this last panel, I'm using gray, dark gray, and light gray. So to do the little tin container, well, the packaging shows a really pretty white container, but I wanted it to look like that rustic tin kind of container. So I thought I'd give it more of kind of a country look. So I'm starting with my lightest gray, then adding the mid gray color, and then I'm going to add the darkest gray along the edges. So I did all 3 colors at once. And then I'm just going to start blending that out. I'm using my blender pen, and these are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens, which are a water-based pen. And you can see how far I can stretch these dark colors. So when you're using the darker colors, you want to be careful how much you put down, because a little bit does go a long way, and you'll see that I'm really able to blend this color all the way across this container here. So I'm just going to keep that center area the lightest. You could also use a water brush here if you wanted to get a little bit of a softer look. And then I do want to add a little bit of shadow up underneath those flowers as well. So I'm going in with that darker gray and just adding a little line of color there. And then I'm going to pull that down. I also want to say you could use that ink smooshing technique that we used on the flowers here as well for your container. And don't worry about coloring onto those flowers and leaves. It doesn't matter. Those aren't going to be showing. So you can just color freely here without worrying about it. And then I'm just adding a little bit of that light gray just to finish off that bottom section there. So once I have those 3 panels done, I'm going to go ahead and start cutting these out. So here I want the container and the flowers. So I'm going to cut this entire piece out. And this is really simple cutting. And you do want to move the paper, not your scissors. So just keep moving that paper around, keeping your scissors pretty much in the same place. Now here I just want the leaves, but I'm going to cut out the whole top section of leaves and flowers. So I'm following those flowers and leaves all the way around, just cutting off the container. Once that's done, that's going to sit right on top of that container there. Now I want to get the flowers, so I can cut away the leaves here. So it's kind of hard to see where they are, so I grabbed the image from the packaging, and there you can clearly see where those leaves are. I did decide to put that packaging right in front of me there, just so I can be sure that I'm following this properly. So again, I'm cutting off the leaves and just keeping the flowers here. So I went around at the whole panel there, and now I have the 3 pieces here that I can stack one on top of another. And that's going to give us a lot of dimension here. But first, what I want to do is go around the edges of all of these pieces that I cut. And I'm using my Tombow black pen, and just kind of coming in from the back, I find is easiest. Just hold the pen behind the image and go all the way around those edges. And that's going to finish off that white edge and any areas where your cutting wasn't perfect. So I've grabbed my Gina K Connect glue, and I'm going to start gluing this together here. So I'm going to be gluing the leaves and flowers to that container. So this is going to line up perfectly. And I'm just going to lay this down flat. Now you could pop this little section up here too if you wanted even more dimension. But I am going to lay this section flat. And I'm just going to make sure that I line that up right along those flowers. And then for the flowers, what I'm going to do is pop those up. And you'll see how much dimension this adds. So I'm going to add a little bit of the Scotch foam mounting tape. And I just added a lot of little chunks of that there just to make sure this sits up nice when it goes through the mail. And then I'm going to go ahead and position this again, just lining it up with those flowers and positioning that down. So now you can see how pretty that watercolored look is on these flowers. And you do get a lot of variety of shading here. And it was really simple and easy to do. So again, if you don't love coloring your flowers in, this is a really easy way to do it. And then I'm going to show you another little trick. I'm using my Jelly Roll white gel pen. And this will just add some highlights to the container and to the flowers really easily. So if you didn't think the shading was perfect in your flowers, just by adding a little bit of the white gel pen, just some little dashes and dots on those flowers, you're going to give that little bit of a highlight there. So I went ahead and did this, all these flowers and leaves, and I'll give you a closer look at that. Now to create my card panel, I'm going to use this beautiful stitched panel here, and you get all of these dies in this. You get all kinds of shapes and sizes, and these are the stitched square and circles from Penny Black Creative Dies. I'm using that largest square. I'm going to run that through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 machine 2 times, and I like to place it on a little bit of an angle because it just runs through a lot easier that way, and you get that beautiful stitched border. So now for ink, I'm going to grab the Peacock Feathers Distress Oxide ink, and here I'm using my Picket Fence Studio Life Changing brush, and I'm using the largest one. I want to give this a soft background with the peacock feathers. So I'm going to place a little bit more color on the corners and then kind of brush in towards the center, keeping the center the lightest. So I finished doing that. I colored all the way around, and again, I'm just adding a little extra color to the corners just to define those edges a little bit more. Now I'm going to take some of the ink, put it on my glass media mat, and spritz it with water. And this time I'm using my fan brush just to spatter this. This will just give us a quick spatter. So you just want to dip it in that ink and then just spatter that entire panel. And this is going to give it a really pretty look. Then I also want to add a little bit of white spattering. So I'm going to heat set this first, and then I'm going to grab my white gesso. I'm going to take a little bit of that gesso and place it on my glass media mat. Again, I'm going to spritz that with a little bit of water, and then I'm going to spatter this panel with the white as well. And you're going to see this just adds a lot of interest to the background here. You could also spatter this with a little bit of black. That would have been pretty as well. But I chose to do the white. I thought it would kind of bring out the highlights that we put on the roses as well. So I'm going to finish spattering that panel. And then I'll heat set that with my heat tool. And look how pretty this is. This just is, I love this background. I think this background can be used for anything. Now I'm grabbing an older stamp that I had in my collection. This is from Penny Black. And this is called the Warm Wishes set. And it's this beautiful textured background. But here, grab any background that you have. I just happen to have this one, and I thought it would be pretty here. So I'm using my Tea-Dye Distress Oxide ink, and I'm just going to stamp a small section. So this is the second panel that we cut, and I'm just going to stamp the bottom section of this panel. So I'm not even placing it in my MISTI. I'm just going to flip that stamp over, ink it up, and then press this paper down onto that lower section there. Then I'm just going to cut away the excess. So I'm just cutting this down to maybe about 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to take my smaller life-changing brush and just add a little bit of a shadow right across the top of this. So on the side that doesn't have the stitched edge here, I'm going to add a little shadow. And I just created this to ground our image a little bit. I want it to look like it's sitting on something. So I'm going back to the Gina K Connect glue. I'm going to add a little bit of glue to this panel. And then I'm going to glue this to the bottom of that larger frame. And again, this is just going to be the base to set our little container of flowers onto. I'm going to my Elizabeth Craft Soft Finish cardstock. This is a 110-pound weight. And this will be to create our card. And it's got a beautiful texture to it. It's like a suede looking finish. And then I've grabbed a piece of black cardstock as well. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this panel. So I'm cutting this 5 inches by 10 inches. So this will be a square 5 by 5 inch card. So I've cut it at the 5-inch. Now I'm going to cut it at 10 inches. Then I'm flipping over that little panel on my We Are Memory Keepers trim and scoreboard to create the scoreboard. I'm lining it up right in that corner, and then I'm scoring it at the 5-inch mark. So now I can go ahead and fold this in half and press out that crease with my bone folder. So now you can see my card measures 5 by 5, and I want to cut a black panel for the front of the card, which measures 4 3/4 by 4 3/4. And I'm using some black licorice cardstock from Lawn Fawn, and this is a 100-pound weight. So again, I'm going back to my ATG 700 tape dispenser, and I'm going to tape this to the front of the card. So once that's done, I can set this aside and do my sentiment. So I'm going to take our background panel. I've placed it in my MISTI, and I just want to determine about where that sentiment is going to be. So I'm placing the flowers here right along the bottom, and I'm going to my Penny Black Joy and Happiness stamp set, and this is a beautiful set of sentiments, and I'm selecting the one that says Sending Cheer. I just thought that would be a great New Year's kind of card to send out, just something cheerful and to get started on the new year. So I'm going to pick this up, just making sure that I centered it and that it's nice and straight, and I'm going to ink that up with my VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I am going to stamp this a couple of times just to make sure I get a nice crisp image. So now that that's all set, I can go ahead and attach that to the front of my card. And I'm just going to center this on the black panel here. And this will be a top folding card that I'm creating here. So now my flowers are going to sit right on that little panel that we created at the bottom. I'm going to pop this up just to add a little bit more dimension here. And I'm using this Scotch foam mounting tape. I'm using the 1-inch tape here. And I'm going to set that down at that bottom panel. Again, that just makes it look like it's sitting on something rather than just kind of floating in the air. I'm just pressing that down, and now I want to attach some little sequins. So I'm going to the 28 Lilac Lane sequins that I have, and this is the Seaside Holiday. So you get some really pretty blues and kind of orangey colors in here. And I'll show you that there up close. So I'm going to select some. I thought I actually would use these orange colored ones, but in the end I decided to go with these more turquoisey green colors to go with that peacock feather. So you can see that I thought I would use those orange colors, but I decided to kind of mimic that darker spatter that was already on this panel. So I'm going to go ahead and attach these with my Gina K Connect glue. And then I'll give you a closer look at this card, and I just love that background and how easily we colored in these flowers. And you could color in the container the same way we colored in the flowers. Just select some grays, light grays and medium grays, and you could do the same exact thing. So I hope you give this a try, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. As always, thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.